Hello, I'm Bill Siegel, and this is the Mexican Coin Club of San Antonio from August 31st, 2023. And tonight we'll be discussing the Mexican Republic 20 centavo coins. One of the most accessible to collect Mexican Republic series. It's widely believed that of all the Mexican Republic series, none of them can be completed. None can be completed by anybody except for the 20 centavo Republic that was produced from 1898 to 1905. And the reason for that is because, it was only produced by 4 mints over a 7-year period of time, and production was such that there was no year with a mintage less than 34,000. So everything is achievable. Whereas, even if we're talking about any other series of Mexican coins, from copper up through gold from the Republic period, there's always going to be rarities that were produced in the low thousands or even below 1,000. Like the gold, a lot of the gold from the Republic period had a mintage of 1 to 400. 100 to 400. A common Mexican Republic gold would be considered a coin with a mintage of 1,000 coins. So, needless to say, when you're dealing with coins that are potentially as rare as that, it doesn't take many collectors to make it almost impossible to complete a whole series. And that's for all of the Republic copper, through the silver, through the gold. The exception, like I say, being the Republic 20 centavo. Now, an interesting thing happened around 1886 that really signaled the demise of the 25 centavo. And that's after 1886, for some reason, they either became unpopular in the circulating area among the people, or they became unprofitable for the mints to produce. And I have a feeling it was the former, not the latter, because the mints were producing as many as 1.5 million, 5 or 10 centavos in some years. So 25 and 50 centavos just weren't produced much after 1886. And by the time 1898 rolled around and they were doing the redesign to the restyled eagle from the traditional Republic eagle, they decided that they needed a replacement for the 25 centavo, and the 20 centavo was more decimal than the 25 centavos, so that became the coin that they produced. The 20 centavo is a beautiful coin, beautiful design, especially in very high grade. And the most appealing thing about the 20 centavo is that you can stand a chance as an average collector of getting easily 10 coins of the whole date run among the 4 mints in BU or AU. There's a lot of them that are in high grade. A lot of them have been circulated also, but they're available in high grade. So what I'll do is go through the mints and by date and tell you what you can expect to easily get and which ones are going to be difficult to find. So the first mint we're going to cover is Culiacan, and prior to, you're going to find that Culiacan 20 centavos from 1898 through 1902 are going to be uncommon in MS grades. You'll see them, but they'll be more expensive and there's more competition for them. In general, among Culiacan, there's not that many varieties, overdates. I think there's 2 or 3, and they are usually scarce. So if you see a variety in Culiacan, it's probably one that you want to buy if you don't already have it, because you won't have all that many chances to get it. In general, I would say for the 20 centavos, there's not that many varieties. And a lot of times you need a better grade coin in order to be able to spot them. Culiacan has 1899 as its most difficult date. Not only difficult because the total production was 34,000, but also there were 2 assayers that year. And let me talk about assayers for those of you who are unfamiliar with Mexican Republic coins. Mexican law stated that the mint master had to have their initials on each coin that was produced, except copper. So for silver and gold, it had to have the initial of the man who made it. And in the case of so collectors will see 1899 as a year where there's 2 assayers. As for Culiacan in 1899, there's 2 coins that I have to have in order to get a complete set. You cannot figure that if you get just one of those assayers, you've got 1899 complete. So you've got 34,000 produced in 1899 across 2 assayers, and that is a coin that when you find it is going to cost a premium price. Especially in high grade, but even in lower grade. And there's it depends on what you consider low mintage. But Culiacan has some relatively low mintage dates of sub 100,000 or 125,000. And when compared with other 20th century coins, there's a lot of very difficult coins in this post-1900 date run of 20 centavos. The next mint we're going to go through is Guanajuato. And here we're going to get into an issue where Mexico in the 1800s had a huge problem with coin counterfeiting. Part of the problem was that coins were produced in 14 mints, and often the mints had slightly different designs. So because of the lack of uniformity, someone could counterfeit and then have a chance of passing their coins, because people would see, oh, that's not the same, that's not a standard design, but there were a lot of mints producing non-standard designs. So what the government's solution to the counterfeiting problem was starting in about 1868, right after the overthrow of Maximilian, they decided that they were going to go with standardized designs, and the Mexican Mint produced standardized designs that all the mints were required to copy. They couldn't have their own style of eagle. They couldn't have their own style of cap. They couldn't have their own punches. It wasn't always done, but in general, after 1868, the level of uniformity across the mints in design was a lot better. Next, when Porfirio Diaz got into power, his solution was, let's reduce the mints and the number of mints and consolidate production in Mexico City and I believe Culiacan, that was a government-owned mint also. So they started, they had these mints privately owned largely, and when the charter for the privately owned mints expired in the Porfirio Diaz period, especially in the 1890s, these mint charters were no longer extended. So by the time 1898 rolled around, you only had 4 mints. And as we can see, talking about Guanajuato, just in this 8-year period of time in the production of 20 centavos, they decommissioned the Guanajuato mint. It only produced up to 1900. It's always pretty much of a given that in the year that a mint stops producing, unless it stops in December 31st, its production in that last year is curtailed because it's only a portion of the year. So therefore, it stands to reason that Guanajuato from 1900 is a pretty difficult date. If you see one, get it. 1898 and 99 are relatively easy to get in MS grade. The 1900 is tough to get, even in good to fine. There's a lot of people who'd even take a fine. It's scarce and very fine or higher. And as far as I've seen, it's virtually impossible to get a 1900 in MS grade. I'm not saying they don't exist, I'm just saying you'd have to pay $500 to $1,000. Mexico City was the major producer of 20 centavos, continuous production from 1898 through 1905. And most of the high-grade 20 centavos that you see are going to be Mexico City coins. The 1898 to 1901 are common in MS. 1902 to 1904 are uncommon in MS grades. And the 1905 is scarce in MS grades. And that gets us on the topic of, in general, across all restyled Eagle production, why was 1905 always a tough date? Fernando Razzo covered this about 10 years ago in a speech that he gave, where he mentioned that during the time of the production of the late Republic coins in 98 through 1905, Mexico was still on the silver standard. The rest of the world was rapidly adopting the gold standard. And in Mexico City was where most of the wealth was in the country, and they decided that in order to have more foreign investment in the country, they needed to abandon the silver standard and adopt the gold standard. And in order to adopt the gold standard, what do you need? Circulating gold. You need everybody who's got 50 pesos or 20 pesos to be able to get gold coins. So they didn't have that much gold in Mexico, so they went to all of the banks and the mints and gathered together all of the available silver they could find, and they took 50 million pesos of silver and shipped it to London and traded that on the exchange for gold. and then they used the gold to start producing all those 2.5 through 20 peso gold coins that are so common from that period. But as a result, because they were scraping together all of these silver coins to try to increase the quantity of gold, the ones that they'd most likely find to sell in London were the more recent production. The rest would have been distributed among the population and difficult to find. So as a result, 1905 Mexico City and 1905 Zacatecas are very difficult to get in the 20 centavo, and also in the 5s and 10s, really. Zacatecas was the final mint that was producing, and 1905 was the last year that both Culiacan and Zacatecas were authorized. So Zacatecas still produced from 1898 through 1905, but 1905 was a partial year. A lot of them got melted. None of the Zacatecas 20 centavos are common in MS. I'm not saying they're rare. You just won't see as many of those as you will the Mexico City or Culiacan dates. 1900 is very scarce in AU and MS, and so is the 1905. I know a guy who's trying to find an 05 Zacatecas, and he wants it in MS, and he says the cheapest you can get it is $1,000. Now, Zacatecas has 2 or 3 varieties, and I believe that all of those are very scarce. So we're not talking like back in the days when the 25 and 50 centavos were produced. Every year had varieties, and they're all generally available. When you get into the 20 centavo period, the government was trying to increase their consistency of production. They were trying to automate it more, and therefore when you get more into a factory mindset, you don't have as many varieties because you're trying to do things in a quality way. So keep that in mind when you're trying to find 20 centavos varieties. Now, the question was posed earlier by a club member that if you had a 20 centavo in 1905 and you came to the U.S. and wanted to start life here, how much would that buy? And the answer is that by that time the U.S. was basically on the gold standard, and they valued silver at approximately 50 cents an ounce rather than its traditional $1.29 per ounce. So they would have treated a 20 centavo coin as just a 1/6 of an ounce of silver, and anybody you could find to buy that silver from you would probably give you a nickel or a dime for it. It would have sold at a huge discount. So there wasn't much international trade between the U.S. and Mexico being done in silver. Even if you were bringing a peso or an 8 real to the U.S., you'd still only get 50 cents or less for it. Even though in Mexico it would buy dollars worth of goods. It's because they were on the silver standard and we were on the gold standard. Almost all of the international trade between the U.S. and Mexico at that time was done in gold. Gold bullion, actually, not even coins. That's why Republic gold coins are so scarce, because they didn't really have a need to produce them. since almost all of the international trade was done in gold bars by that time. And if you took a 1 peso gold to a grocery store in Mexico at the time, it would buy the exact same amount as a silver 1 peso would, even though it had twice the metal content in terms of value according to the rest of the world, which is one of the reasons Mexico wanted to switch from the silver to the gold standard. They wanted to put themselves on an equal footing with the rest of the world. But that's pretty much well, let's talk prices, okay? That's another reason that 20 centavos are fun to collect, is because if you're not looking to get them in MS grades and you don't care about slab coins and you don't mind getting one in fine, you can get them as cheap as $6. They're still very affordable. Even if you get one of the tougher days, you probably won't pay more than 25 bucks in fine. So for the people who don't need an MS collection, it's very affordable to collect. They're very interesting. It's not by any means easy to do the whole set, but it's very possible. So for somebody who wants to get their toe into Mexican Republic, collecting 20th century, 20 centavo restyled eagle design is a good way to start. Any questions? Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.